All right, coming up on this episode of Sound Culture, we're going to be talking about 2017's AFI self-titled album, also sometimes known as the Blood album, and you're going to want to check it out because I've got some really interesting insights into this record. All right, we're back for another episode of Sound Culture, the show where we give you recommendations on albums you should be listening to. Today, we're talking about AFI's self-titled 2017 album, sometimes known as the Blood album, and it's going to be a lot of fun for me to talk about this because I have some really interesting anecdotes about this record. So, believe it or not, AFI actually released this album in 4 variations, one being the blood type A, then the blood type B, blood type O, and finally blood type AB. And on top of that, in case you didn't know this about AFI, their name actually means a fire inside. Now, if you are a longtime fan of the band, of course that's going to make sense to you, but I just wanted to share that tidbit in case it had not been made clear to you yet, because I learned that back in 2000 when I listened to Sing the Sorrow, one of my favorite albums. And that's not true. It was 2003 when Sing the Sorrow came out. It was The Art of Drowning came out in 2000. That said, this album features the infamous Davey Havok. Adam Carson is the drums and percussion as always because he's a founding member as per 1991 when these guys got together. We also have Jade Pujic, and he is our guitar player. He's also the producer of this album, and if you haven't heard of Black Audio or Extremist, check out those bands because he's a part of them as well. On top of that, you have the last member of the band, Hunter Bergen, who is the bassist and also provides backing vocals along with Jade on occasion. There's a lot to unpack in this album. I'm going to be honest. I really think that if you're a fan of AFI, no matter what era you look at, whether it's Crash Love or Burials or December Underground, Sing the Sorrow, The Art of Drowning, or even their earlier stuff like Answer That and Stay Fashionable, there's something for everyone on this record. And that might actually be why some people have a hard time with it and can't be completely satisfied listening to it. That said, it did get as high as number 5 on the Billboard 200. And it is a very, I would say, great song. It has a series of great songs like Hidden Knives, Aurelia, Snowcats, and what's the other one? Where's Brendan when I need him? White Offerings. This album, so let me just step back for a second. What we've learned since AFI have kind of become a crazy commercial success after December Underground and around the time that Sing the Sorrow came out in the early 2000s, is that everything they've kind of made since then has been a challenge to their diehard fans. So you get Crash Love, which is very much a pop record. You get Burials, which is them taking that punk emo core look that they kind of honed over those years and kind of dashing it to the side and saying, no, now we're just going to be a little bit more versatile. And that's okay. And I've said this before, when Brendan's here and, when we talk about albums in general, it's okay to make concept albums, and it's okay to make albums that separate yourself from what you've done before. And in some cases, it's actually good to make albums that kind of showcase strengths. And that's what AFI have done with this album. And if you like other bands that sound like this, you're going to be interested to know that The Used, who I'm wearing their shirt right now, sound a lot like this these days. And you had My Chemical Romance and Rise Against and Taking Back Sunday and Thrice and Senses Fail and a whole host of others like Finch and even or A Perfect Circle. This sort of experimentation with melodic sounds and pop, like I alluded to on their earlier record with Crash Love, that's something that a lot of punk bands and alt rock bands are doing these days because pop is getting a resurgence, and it's not seen as just a vehicle for catchy melodies. It's also a way to send out a message. And like I said, the Blood album does that. And you can and I think it's aptly named because it has a lot of blood and sweat and tears behind it. And these guys are really, really strong performers, and they can still put together a solid album. And like I said, this album did go to number 5 on the Billboard 200. It actually got all the way up there. And Jade Puget recently said of this album that him and Davey Havok spent so much time in the studio, they wrote over 60 songs before they got down to the final 4 that make up this finished record. So you can tell that these guys put a lot of love into this album, and they really thought about what they wanted to say. Some other interesting facts I think you should know about AFI. This album was recorded on the Concord label, which features acts like New Pornographers and Kenny G and Elbow, who has done some great things in music recently. To leave you with some final thoughts on the album, as I kind of mentioned already, this is not an album of great changes. It's more of an album of familiarity and coming up to sounds that we've heard before from these gentlemen. But with that said, that doesn't mean that it isn't a solid record. It's not as ruthless or challenging as maybe you would like to see from a band with this sort of tenure, but it is definitely an excellent listen. And I've been listening to it for a few months now, and I can still get behind it. And I can hear songs like Silver and Cold, and you can hear things in there like Miss Murder. Like it's got some great elements to it, and it's definitely worth a listen. That said, I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you check out the album if you haven't heard it yet, and if you have heard it and you've been on the fence about it, give it a few more listens. I think you'll find that it's really quite enjoyable. If you liked the video, please leave a like, leave a share, subscribe to the channel, of course, because we want to be doing more and more of these kinds of reviews. And that said, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Everything is recording. It's time for me to make up stuff about AFI. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about a motherfucking band.